Oh boy, this is a wild one. Love Lies Bleeding is now officially playing in theaters, and I actually didn't even know that at first. I mean, I've been looking forward to this film because I love A24. The cast looked great, the synopsis, everything. I was really looking forward to this one, and I watched the trailers. I was like, yeah, I want to watch this. And then it just completely slipped my mind, and I just didn't even realize until already the weekend was over, and I was like, oh, that movie's out. So yeah, it's out now. It's playing in theaters, but only it's supposedly got a wide release. But there are very few theaters around me that are actually playing it. So I had to go out of my. I work at a movie theater, so I get to see movies for free there. But I had to go to another theater and actually pay for a ticket to watch it. But it was worth it because, man, Love Lies Bleeding is a great movie. It's a wild one for sure, like I said, but it's really good. This I think is definitely one of my favorites of the year so far. To be fair, we're only 3 months into the year, but this is up there with Dune Part 2. I think I still like Dune Part 2 better, but this is definitely my second favorite movie of the year so far. Love Lies Bleeding, that's how you pronounce it. It is a story about a gym owner named Lou, played by Kristen Stewart, who falls in love with a female bodybuilder named Jackie, played by Katie O'Brien. And there's murder, there's lying, there's bleeding, all that stuff. And it's basically all about what would you do for love? Because really, despite everything else that's going on in this film, and there's a lot going on, at the center, it is a love story, a beautiful lesbian love story. And yeah, like you got a whole lot of other stuff going on here as well, like domestic abuse within a marriage, steroids, building competitions, lots of crime, lots of murdering. Let's see. There's just there's a lot going on here. Cheating on each other. There's a lot happening in this movie, and like I said, it is all about what would you do for love? Would you lie? Would you bleed? Would you do all these other things that happen in this movie? This is a non-spoiler review, so I won't talk about that. But it's great. And the thing about that is that as soon as these two characters come on screen together, when they have their first conversation together, you are automatically on board with the relationship. You are automatically a fan of this relationship and this couple. And it automatically makes you care about these characters all the more. You care about them separately, but even more together, which I really, really appreciate. But separately, they've also got their own stuff going on, and the way those collide really do not mix well at all. But the performances here are just fantastic. Kristen Stewart, I don't think I've seen a whole lot of Kristen Stewart's work, but man, this is a great performance. I can definitely see some Oscar noms for this movie. Kristen Stewart specifically, I could see that for sure. She's definitely more so the lead of this film. She's got some interesting backstory here with her father, played by Ed Harris, which that guy... Jeez, just his look is disturbing. The interesting thing about this movie is it's not a horror movie. It's definitely a thriller, but there's certainly some horror elements to it. There's some really disturbing moments for sure, and a lot of that comes with Ed Harris's character because he's just super creepy. Dude's got a bug collection, and just his hairdo alone is terrifying. But yeah, Kristen Stewart, her whole family relationship, with her sister as well. That's where the domestic abuse comes in as well. Because there's not only love that Kristen Stewart's character has for Katie O'Brien's character, but also for her sister as well, and the lack of love for her father, which I thought was quite interesting. Katie O'Brien is fantastic. I've been a fan of her for years now. I love her in The Mandalorian, and so I love seeing that she's taking on a much larger role here, and she does a fantastic job. Also, she is ripped. That was something they really leaned into here, obviously, because, with with that being one of the focus points of the plot is that Katie O'Brien's character, she's on her way to a female bodybuilding competition in Las Vegas. That's a big aspect here. And of course, steroids get involved, and just the sound effects used here are quite disturbing. When you see her flexing her muscles and you see the veins popping out, the sound effects here, the crunching, the popping, ugh, disgusting. But I mean, it's very effective. This is a movie that really has you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole film. It's very intense, for sure. There's just so many moments where it's like, oh, what is going to happen next? And like, oh, there's a body there, and they're trying to hide it, but the police are there. Just so many moments here that are just really, really intense, and I really enjoyed it. Katie O'Brien also was in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That was the other thing I know her from. She was good there as well. Also, I do want to give a shout out as well. A good supporting role in here is the character of Daisy, played by Anna Baryshnikov, if that's how you pronounce it. She's fantastic. She plays a woman who is in love with Kristen Stewart's character and very attracted to her, and she's just really loopy and crazy. And she seems very ditzy, but there's certain moments where you can tell she's not like she's got stuff figured out more than you would think that she does. So I thought that was really quite interesting. The way the plot plays out, again, like I said, it's very on the edge of your seat. It's very what's going to happen next and how everything is entangling here, and oh, that just happened, and how is that going to go from there, how they're going to move forward. But the interesting thing about this film, like I said, I love the love story. You're automatically enamored with the relationship, and I love that that's the core of this film. That's the core of their motivations throughout the story. But when you get to the end of the movie, the ending of this film is what's going to really be divisive and I guess kind of controversial among fans. Because there's something that happens at the end of this movie, like one of the final sequences of the film. It's just, I mean, it's a non-spoiler review, so I'm not going to say what it is, but just something happens, and I watched another review before I watched the movie, and they mentioned this big moment, crazy, unexpected thing that happened at the end of the film, and I had all these theories of what it could be, and it was nowhere close to what I thought it would be. It's so unexpected and out of nowhere, and I keep going back and forth on it about whether I like the choice that was made there, because I've thought about it and I see why they did it, but at the same time, in the moment, it's so jarring and just feels out of place. Because this is a film based in reality. There's a big chunk of realism going on here. And then at the end, you get this moment where it's like, out of nowhere, it just happens, and it's confusing. But there's also a lot of hallucinations in this film, and a lot of symbolism and I guess visual metaphors. Like, there's a lot of great moments where it's a visualization of how the characters are feeling, which I really appreciated. But this one moment at the end of the film it was very jarring, and it felt very out of place. But yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed this film. I really loved it. Again, it was a great love story. Love, lies, bleeding. All three of them. Great performances, great story, great action. It's very violent. Actually, another thing, talking about the love aspect of this, it's a very sexual film, but in an interesting way, because yes, obviously there is nudity. It's rated R. But there's not a whole lot of it. There's really only like maybe 2 scenes of nudity in the whole film, but there's a lot of sex scenes. But the way they play it is really interesting, because it's kind of left to like you assume that's what's happening, but you're not necessarily seeing it. But the way it's portrayed is just really interesting. I saw an interview the other day where Kristen Stewart was talking about how like these are some of the hottest sex scenes she's ever done before. And even without showing stuff, like you really get that feel from it. So I really appreciated that. Also, shout out to the headline we got the other day of a guy caught enjoying himself watching the movie and then falling asleep with his pants down. Glad that didn't happen in my theater. There's only like 3 people in my theater, including me. But it was a great experience. It was a great film. Also, I think the first theater I've been in with surround sound, which was really weird to get used to, and very just a little disturbing. But it worked for this movie very well, because it really helped set the tone. Because that's the best way to describe this movie. It's a great, sexy lesbian love story with lots of murder and intensity and disturbingness for sure. But it's all done so well, and I can definitely see some presence for this film at the Oscars next year, so that's quite exciting. But guys, what did you think about Love Lies Bleeding? If you saw it, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, non-spoilers. What did you think about that ending, that moment at the ending? Because again, that was out of nowhere. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep it up to date on everything that goes on in the movie life.